Guys, I promise to come back this afternoon and talk about insulin resistance, diabetes, what's happening, why it's important, and all of that, so you can better understand what's happening to your health. Because I'm going to guarantee you, most of your doctors. Sorry, I had a call. I need to put this on do not disturb. Most of your doctors, your physicians, have never talked to you about it. Now, I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I'm just here to help because I know that I lived that life and nobody talked to me about all this stuff. Nobody helped me out. And I worked in medical offices, but none of my doctors addressed any of this stuff. I had to figure it out on my own. And then I later found out it's because they're not educated on most of this. So we're going to dive into what diabetes is, why it's happening, what insulin resistance is, and some of the things that are happening when you have diabetes. Because if you're anything like I was, and I worked in medical, you hear diabetes and you're like, yeah, what's the big deal? I remember when Brett Michaels was struggling, and he still does, with diabetes. And I was like, what's the big deal? Why is this so important? We're going to go over that right now because you need to understand what's happening inside your body, why you're sick, and what could really be going on so you can finally get better from it. Like, I'm going to tell you an analogy later in this live, but what I want to tell you right now is if your check engine light goes off on your car, do you want to go fix the problem that's going on with the engine? Or just want to put a piece of tape over that light in your dashboard so you don't have to see it anymore? Because typical therapies that we're getting now are putting a light over that, or a tape over that light, so we don't have to look at it anymore. But it's not fixing the engine that's going wrong, and we're going to dive into why. So let's get there right now. What if I told you that blood sugar is not all there is to your diabetes? It's not just about your blood sugar. It's about how your body's entire system is out of sync. So let's start with the root cause of so many health struggles called insulin resistance. And you guys have probably, unless you've been under a rock, you've been hearing about insulin resistance. Some of you understand it, some of you don't. I want to break it down so you can understand it better and why you should be paying attention when people say insulin resistance and how broad that is in your life today. So what exactly is it and why does it matter? Let's dive in. Insulin is a hormone. Stop and ask questions, you guys. I'm going to go through this rapid fire because we're trying to get through the science. This is going to be a little bit heavy on the science. If you get to a point where you are not understanding, just ask, or just, give me some kind of clue that you need more clarification. So I'll slow down because I'm all excited and I want to get through this. All right. So insulin is it's a hormone that's acting like a key to unlock your cells so glucose can get into the cells. And glucose is just energy that's trying to enter your cells. But you need that energy, right? For every single cell in the body to work, you need energy in those cells. Insulin is the key that's unlocking the cell door so energy can come in. All right. So when your cells stop responding to insulin effectively, it's called insulin resistance. And the result of that is that glucose builds up in the bloodstream and causes high blood sugar levels. Now, most of us are not hearing about it until it's high blood sugar, right? So hang on a second. I got some questions already. What's the sigma you sub? Not gonna lie, we all need Martin, thank you guys. Okay, so I'm live on Facebook and YouTube as well, you guys. So let's get through this. And I want you to understand. So when that high blood sugar level is happening, this is what's happening. Your pancreas has to work harder to produce more insulin to force glucose into the cells because now the cells are not taking it up like it should. And over time, the overproduction of insulin, which is being produced by your pancreas, starts to exhaust the pancreas and your blood sugar levels start to rise. Now, you're not only increasing insulin, decreasing the sensitivity in the cells, you're overworking your pancreas when you're letting insulin resistance go unchecked. And we're going to talk about all of the downstream things that happen with that. I don't know. I saw somebody that said happy or something, and threw me off. So all of this sets the stage for prediabetes and type 2 diabetes and a host of other health issues. Look, insulin resistance is the root of of prediabetes and diabetes. So when people ask me, I don't have diabetes. I don't have prediabetes. This doesn't affect me. Yes, it does, because 95% of us have an insulin problem, and insulin resistance is the bottom line that leads to the diabetes and prediabetes. So, what causes insulin resistance? Now, we're going to focus today on the food part, right? There are other causes, and I want to go over some of those because food is not the only issue. How many of you guys have been told that food is not the only issue to your insulin resistance? I want to full stop tell you that yes, sugar is the biggest cause of insulin resistance, but there are about four other causes. So if you want to look at this holistically, you've got to look at those other causes as well as the number one cause, which is your food. So poor diet. We have diets that are high in refined carbs. Hold on a second. Martin, it's okay to have a cookie after you have your healthy meal? It can be if you're getting in the right amount of fiber. So let's talk about that. I'm going to get through this and then I'll answer those kind of questions. But I love the glucose goddess. And we're going to see how her philosophies and what I'm doing intersect towards the end of this talk because they absolutely intersect. Okay, so your poor diet's high in refined carbs, sugars, processed foods like blood sugar levels, spike your blood sugar levels repeatedly, forcing the body to produce more insulin than it needs. And then we start to have insulin resistance. But some of the other causes are things like chronic stress. So, do you know that elevated cortisol from stress, that fight or flight thing that we're all under attack from, blue lights, constant moving in our life and not getting enough sleep, cortisol can increase your blood sugar and interfere with insulin's ability to work properly. Insulin resistance can increase your cortisol. Got to take care of both sides, guys. It's not just food. Address your stress, because even if you're not addressing your stress and you're trying to eat better, it's still going to hit you in the butt if you're not addressing them both. A couple of the other things, which is hitting most of us, is lack of physical activity. Your muscles make your body far more insulin sensitive than just about any other tissue in your body. If you're sitting around at a computer like I do all day and not getting up and moving, you're more likely to be insulin resistant than someone who's eating the same diet as you, but getting out, taking walks and going and doing an exercise. I'm not talking like I used to be a power lifter. I'm not talking that you got to go in the gym and work out 3 hours a day like I used to, and that's probably why I stayed healthy for longer, right? Because I was so active. But you don't have to do all of that. Just move your body. Move your body, move your body. That's going to help your insulin resistance. Way number 4, I just did a video on this and I want you guys to hear me. Seed oils are highly processed and cause a ton of inflammation in your body. That excess inflammation triggers more insulin resistance, surgeries, other injuries. All of that inflammation causes your insulin resistance to go up. But we can't all, mediate the fact that we may fall or we may need something else going on, but we can certainly get those seed oils out of our diet and stop that internal inflammation that creates more insulin resistance. Okay. Yep. You got to be active. So the last one I'm going to talk about a little bit is genetics. Now, it used to be that genetics was at the top of this list. 20 years ago, they were all like, oh, diabetes is just genetic. There's a genetic key, obviously. But what's happening is you may be genetically predisposed to having some of these problems, but without the poor diet, it's not likely that it's going to happen. So are you more likely to end up with insulin resistance if you're eating crappy food and you have the genetics for it? Yes, you are. So then you have to be more careful about the foods you eat and take in healthier foods as a result. Now, I'm going to get to some of that in a little bit, but I'm going to ask you a question. You guys, I get all excited about this topic. Have you ever felt like your body just isn't cooperating with you? No matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, because that's where I was. I did all the stuff. I did vegan, I did keto, I did all of that, and I wasn't getting better. It's because nobody told me about insulin resistance. Nobody told me about our modern food environment. Nobody told me that all of these foods were actually making us sick. And that's the bottom line of it. Now, Genetics, we want to look at, there's a lot to do with genetics, and I'm not a geneticist, but I just want you to know that there is a piece of it, a piece of it. It's not the only part of why you're sick. It's a piece of it. We're going to go back to the top of this list of 5. Poor diet is the biggest driver of insulin resistance and diabetes. I'm gonna take a side step because I just had something hit my head. I saw an amazing TikTok the other day, or reel or whatever, and there was an extremely obese woman, and she said, I went to the doctor. They asked me what my favorite food was, and I said tomatoes, and my mom said, well, yeah, but you love mac and cheese, and she was all offended, as if the fact that she was eating a lot of mac and cheese wasn't contributing to her weight, because she just wanted people to focus on the fact that she's eating tomatoes. Guilt, you guys, in our food is a big thing. We have to take some accountability for what we're doing, but we also have to understand that the food that's given to us is causing some of this issue. But please don't tell me that you're going to eat bowls and bowls and bowls of mac and cheese and cereal all day, and that's it's that you love tomatoes that caused you to be obese. Let's get real. Okay, all right. So let's talk about how insulin resistance, this thing I love to talk about, leads to diabetes. And thank you, the skeptical lover. I'm not going to say the other part. Um, uh, Howard Stern, and Howard Stern may be insulin resistant. I don't know. Don't know enough about him to know that. Look, insulin resistance doesn't just happen overnight. It's a silent process that takes years to happen. It can take 10, 20 years before that insulin resistance shows up as diabetes. And that is a problem because you're only being tested for diabetes. Nobody's looking at insulin resistance that's causing you all the problems we're going to talk about in a minute in the meantime. So they're missing the point. And by the time they catch it, your body is severely damaged. Okay. It's like a tooth cavity. Yes. Hey, Jenny, it's good to see you. All right. So understanding the mechanism of how this is happening. Let's think about this. Think of your cell doors as locked doors. And remember, I said insulin is a key. Insulin is that key that unlocks them, allowing the sugar that you're eating, glucose, energy that you're eating, to get into the cells and feed them the energy they need. In a healthy system, this process works seamlessly. But with insulin resistance, that key of insulin is no longer working because your cells are resisting it. The locks, the cell receptors, have become damaged or unresponsive, and I'm going to tell you how that's happening to you. Okay. So, the body's first response to overproduction of insulin or hyperinsulinemia is going to be this. Martin, yes, this will be on my YouTube channel. You can come back and watch any of my lives at any time. They're all recorded there. Okay. Appreciate you. Come back and watch it. Now, the body's first response, I'm going to start over again. The body's first response or overproduction of insulin, called hyperinsulinemia, is when your cells stop responding to insulin. Glucose stays in the bloodstream instead of being removed and into the cells. Your pancreas, sensing the elevated blood sugar, works overtime to produce more insulin to force open the resistant cells. That leads to hyperinsulinemia, where insulin levels in your blood remain chronically high. One of the other things that's happening is, as insulin is rising in your bloodstream and it's trying to get the sugar out and the cells are resisting it, guess where that extra energy is going? Does anybody know where the energy that your cells cannot use goes when the cells won't take it? It goes straight into your fat cells. You know what fat cell takes up the most of it? Your visceral fat. The fat that's in and around your organs, underneath the muscle wall of your belly, that's where that energy is going predominantly. And then it starts going to the subcutaneous, the jiggly wiggly fat all over the rest of our body. But that fat production is coming from excess insulin, unable to get the sugar into the cells of your body. Make note of that. Okay, you guys need to understand that. Now, studies suggest that chronic hyperinsulinemia exacerbates metabolic dysfunction, and I'll talk about metabolic disorder later this week, and contributes to the development of other conditions like high blood pressure and dyslipidemia or lipid problems in your body. Okay. Over time, your pancreas becomes overworked and starts to lose its ability to produce insulin efficiently. And this process, where your pancreas is overworked, just try and stay with me for a second, is called beta cell dysfunction. So when I say beta cell dysfunction, I want you to understand that your pancreas isn't functioning properly. Got it? Okay. So, whew, insulin production is starting to slow when you have beta cell dysfunction. So now remember, the pancreas was overworking, producing too much insulin. That high level of insulin constantly starts to overwork your poor pancreas. It's tired. It just can't do its job like it's supposed to. Beta cell dysfunction. Now that means that insulin that your body needs to help deal with all this glucose, it's not getting it like it should because your pancreas just can't produce it. You've damaged it. You've worn it out. It's too tired. Okay? So now your blood glucose levels are rising again. And they're starting to be unchecked, and now you start to show up with prediabetes. So hear me. By the time you're diagnosed with prediabetes, what's happened? You've overworked your pancreas. You have some beta cell dysfunction. Prediabetes means this has already happened and it should have been caught sooner. Okay. That prediabetes then eventually leads to type 2 diabetes, eventually leads to type 3 diabetes or Alzheimer's. So let's take a look at that. According to research published in Diabetes Care, beta cell dysfunction or beta function may decline by as much as 20% every year in individuals with insulin resistance if left unaddressed. So I said it could take 10 or 20 years before your insulin resistance shows up as prediabetes and you're finally diagnosed that you got to take care of it. And along the way, you're creating more and more damage. That beta cell function is reducing 20% every year, up to 20% because it's not been diagnosed, right? It's not been caught. So I want you to understand all this stuff. We're going to talk about how you can catch it early. I'm going to talk about what you can do, even though you're like, I'm not diabetic, I'm not overweight, this doesn't involve me. Yes, it does. Listen up, okay? So the feedback loop of insulin resistance and elevated blood sugar is a little something like this. Your high blood sugar levels further damage your cells. Now, the insulin's not able to get it in there, but the elevated blood sugar levels, getting too much in, is starting to create damage in your cells, increasing oxidative stress and inflammation. And that oxidative stress and inflammation creates a vicious cycle where more insulin is needed. Oxidative stress, inflammation increases your need for insulin. Remember, I said that earlier, but the excess sugar is causing more of that. Now it's like you have this spiral that's causing more and more problems. You got to get the sugar out of your bloodstream and you got to do it in a way that makes sense. We're going to talk about that. So that vicious cycle is happening. And here's the thing, another research piece, okay? Chronic hyperinsulinemia or hyperglycemia causes glycation of proteins and lipids. Hang out with me because I'm going to explain glycation in a second. And that glycation of proteins and lipids damages tissues and contributes to complications such as neuropathy, nerve damage, retinopathy, eye damage, and nephropathy, kidney damage. Okay, we're going to explain some of that. Research is showing that this glycation caused by too much sugar is causing all this damage in your body. So if you guys are suffering with eye problems, if you're suffering with nerve problems and edema, and you're peeing all the time and your kidneys aren't functioning, guess what? It's insulin resistance. It's insulin resistance, most likely. There can be some other causes, but we're going to focus on insulin resistance. So now, how does glycation happen? I'm going to explain that, and then I'm probably going to repeat myself, but we're going to talk about glycation a little bit because I want you guys to understand that word, right? That word of glycation. When glucose levels are elevated, your sugar molecules, that sugar, that glucose that you've eaten, are more likely to attach to proteins in your blood and in your tissues. For example, your hemoglobin A1C or your hemoglobin, the oxygen carrying protein in your red blood cells becomes glycated when exposed to high glucose levels. So too much sugar hanging out in your bloodstream. And remember this, 1 teaspoon of sugar in your blood is all your body can really handle before all this stuff starts to happen. Now you have excess sugar in your blood, and you're starting to damage your hemoglobin, the oxygen carrying protein in your red blood cells. And this is why your doctors are measuring your HbA1c. It's like a long-term picture of your blood sugar. But what HbA1c is really measuring is how glycated your hemoglobin is as a long-term marker of how well you're able to manage your blood sugars. The higher that number, the less you are capable of handling blood sugars. The lower that number, the better you are at being able to handle those blood sugars. I'll talk about what this is in just a little bit. Hang out with me and learn a little bit, and then we'll talk about how we can handle it. Okay, there's a lot of information on there out there about insulin resistance, but I just want you to understand why this is also necessary and why we need to take care of it. So when we look at glycation now, and we know that this is why they're measuring our HbA1c, I want you to understand is over time, those sugar protein bonds become more stable and irreversible. Your sugar shouldn't be bonding to your protein like that. So it sounds like, oh, those sugar bonds are becoming more stable. That's not a good thing. When they start to become more stable and used to that, it starts to become more and more irreversible. So that glycation that's causing problem starts to become harder to address. Why would we wait till we're pre-diabetic to address it? We don't want to. And yet most of us are not having that opportunity to address it early because we just don't know. And again, our healthcare professionals are not telling us. Okay. So when these molecules are becoming more irreversible and stable, they accumulate in your tissues, and that leads to stiffness, inflammation, and cellular dysfunction. Are your muscles stiff and sore? Are you having inflammation throughout your body? It's probably glycation and too much sugar in your system. Big, long process. I get it. If you have questions, let me know. You guys, YouTube is kicking in and they're saying some silly stuff. You know, that's the joy with social media. People got to say stupid stuff to feel important. All right. So let's talk about oxidative stress and these glycation end products called AGEs. Glycation. All right. Over time, that creates the cellular dysfunction. So AGEs, or accelerated glycation end products. Okay. They generate free radicals, which damage cells and increase oxidative stress. Now, this in turn triggers chronic inflammation, a driving force behind many degenerative diseases, many that you don't know that you're suffering with, that you need to know this could be the root cause of. Okay. So, why is this glycation harmful? It stiffens your blood vessels, making them less flexible and more prone to blockages. It contributes to hypertension and cardiovascular diseases. It contributes to organ damage. AGEs can accumulate in organs like the kidneys, the liver, your eyes, and impair their function. Remember, nephropathy, neuropathy, and retinopathy. Okay, so that's where this is all starting, is this AGEs from having too much sugar in your bloodstream. They'd also, let's listen to this, they also damage collagen and elastin, the proteins that are responsible for keeping your skin firm and elastic. And when that damage happens, guess what? You have more wrinkles and more sagging. And that's why glycation has a reputation as a contributor to premature aging. So have you ever looked at somebody at a certain age and you have a group of people, women and men, and some of them look like they're holding up pretty good, okay, and some of them look like they've been run through the ringer? Glycation is causing a lot of those wrinkles and sagging skin that are making them look older. So let's think about that a second. I'm going to make a big link here. You often see it in smokers and alcoholics. Let's talk about alcoholics. We all know that most alcohol is giving you excessive amounts of sugar. So that excessive amount of sugar is causing this glycation, which is causing them to look much older. But yet we're starting to see it more and more with the food that we have, these bag box processed foods that are causing the same kind of damage in our skin. OMAD. I'll talk about OMAD in a little bit. Eating small amounts of fruits is absolutely okay. Why would you not do that? I'm not talking about sitting down as fruits for your whole meal. We can talk about that in a little bit. OMAD, I'm not a particular fan of because I don't think you're getting in enough nutrition. Unless you're an older person who's not really active and your cells are already shutting down, OMAD, you cannot get enough protein and nutrients in one meal a day. That's my thought. Okay, so let's go back to glycation. All right. How can you minimize glycation? This thing where we have all this too much sugar in our system causing all this damage to our cells and our blood cells and our proteins and our lipids. Okay, so what you want to do is control your blood sugar. Yeah, Misha, that's pretty obvious. I get it. But the less sugar that you keep in your blood, the fewer opportunities there are for glycation to occur. So, other than cutting back the sugar, there are ways to reduce the blood sugar in or the sugar in your bloodstream. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But managing insulin resistance and maintaining a low A1C, that big picture of a long-term blood sugar, damage to your hemoglobin, that's crucial, right? That's why we're looking at the A1C. When I started the protocol we're going to talk about, my A1C was 7.4 and climbing. It's now like bouncing between 4.8 and 5, somewhere in there. It's a great number for my A1C, clearly out of the diabetic range. And I still have that cookie once in a while. I still have bread. I still have ice cream from time to time, whatever, right? I'm going to show you how it can be done. I'm going to talk to you about a better way to do it than OMAD, the observer. So just hang out with me. Give me a few more minutes and we're going to get there. I want to get through this glycation process and then we'll talk about it. So some other ways that you're having glycation in your food or in your body is not just the sugars you're eating. I want you to understand every time you over fry that steak, overcook that hamburger, fry your eggs till they're cardboard, that cooking process can cause AGEs as well. Stop overcooking your food, okay? Reduce your sugar intake, stop overcooking your food and cooking your food at high heat. That is causing AGEs as well. All right. So understand that. Now, let's talk about what they are. Let's go back over AGEs a little bit more in depth. So, advanced glycation end products, they're harmful compounds that are formed when sugars bind to proteins or lipids or DNA. Sugars binding to proteins, lipids, and DNA. Okay. In a non enzymatic process that's called glycation. Those AGEs accumulate then in the body over time, especially in people with high blood sugar. High blood sugar is the number one, and they contribute to oxidative stress and inflammation and tissue damage. So, sugar, overcooking, get rid of it. Okay. They're linked to complications in diabetes, such as neuropathy, retinopathy, and kidney disease. I'm going to keep repeating those till you get it. Nerve damage, eye damage, kidney damage. And they're also causing accelerated aging and cardiovascular issues. So, reducing your blood sugar levels, avoiding high AGE foods like fried or grilled items, and consuming antioxidant rich foods can help minimize their harmful effects. Now, one piece of the protocol, or actually both pieces, are high in antioxidants, and that's part of why it's working so well. So look, foods that are rich in antioxidants are things like berries, leafy greens, and nuts, and they help neutralize free radicals and reduce AGE formation. They help reduce that glycation going on in your body. Now, exercising regularly, which we mentioned earlier. I'm sorry, I'm reading comments all over the board here. That I remember that improves your insulin sensitivity and reduces glucose levels, minimizing that glycation. The most impactful muscle group that you can work out to help all of this is your lower body. legs, squats, deadlifts, lunges, walks, running, stairs, that all will get you more insulin sensitive quicker than doing curls, right? I know you guys like to do your curls, but got to work your legs if you want to become insulin sensitive. Okay. So I'm going to summarize that and we're going to move on. Glycation is essentially your body's proteins, lipids, or DNA getting sugar coated and damaged. And while the process naturally happens as part of aging, high blood sugar levels accelerate it, contributing to many of the diseases you're suffering with right now. And you haven't been told about this. Okay. You're not being told about this, but you got to understand it so you can get better. But the good news, the really good news is, again, I'm going to talk about insulin resistance. By addressing your insulin resistance, by getting your insulin resistance under control and making healthier lifestyle choices, you can significantly slow down glycation and protect your body from its harmful effects. That was a lot, right? You want to affect glycation, have better heart health, have better skin health, have less of that damage that's causing oxidation and inflammation throughout your body. Get your sugar levels down, address your insulin. It's pretty simple. This is a long, big talk, but I want you to understand, if some of you need to understand this stuff. Hey, Jason, it's so good to see you. I'm so glad to see you on again. I know I haven't been on to see you, but it's good to see you. Okay, so I love analogies, you guys. I love analogies because I think the subconscious doesn't always pick up everything I'm putting down until we give you analogies. So again, we're going to go back to the locksmith. Imagine a locksmith trying to open a rusted lock. Now remember, insulin is the key. The cells have the lock. Insulin's not working in that key lock anymore because the cells are kind of getting resistant to it. But over time, with this glycation and this excess insulin, the lock is starting to get rusted. Okay. Oxidation, glycation, inflammation, you have a rusted lock. So at first you can put the key in and you might try and force it in harder and try and turn it. And it may work once or twice, but eventually it's going to stop working or it's going to break. So that force is your pancreas creating more insulin. That more insulin is creating more rust and more dysfunction. And that's really not the way we want to go. So if you're type 2 diabetic and your doctor's giving you more insulin to help your diabetes, ask them why. Why are you getting more of the problem? If you had an alcoholic and they were trying to detox from alcohol, or they were trying to get better from their alcoholism, would you throw a six-pack in front of them and say, drink this every day? It's going to help you? It's kind of what insulin being added to a type 2 diabetic is. That's kind of what they're doing. And does it make sense to anybody? It doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, so all of this to say, understanding how your insulin resistance distributes to, or leads to your diabetes underscores how urgently you should be paying attention to it, how urgently you should be addressing it. It's not just about managing your blood sugar, it's about preventing this cascade of metabolic failures and body-wide damage that can happen when there's too much sugar in your system. Now, if you're like me and you were like, what's the big deal with diabetes before? Are you starting to understand now why excess sugar cannot stay in your blood? Some of the things that are happening. One doctor explained it to me like excess sugar in the blood is like having a blood vessel full of glass shards. Not only is all of this stuff happening, but it's starting to cause tears and damage inside your blood vessels. I talked about this a little bit on my heart health video the other day. That damage starts causing things like atherosclerosis and lipid profile problems, and that it's contributing to that. I'm not going to say that causes it. That was the wrong way to say it. But understand that there's an array of things that are happening in your body that's wrong when you have insulin resistance. So it's not just a precursor to diabetes, it's a driving force behind many chronic diseases that can silently impact your body for years. So I want to talk about why addressing it's not optional. It's not optional. It's not optional. It's necessary. It's necessary for you to deal with this so that you can have long-term health. Because if you're like me and you haven't addressed it, you could end up with a walker, a cane, disability plates, unable to go up and down stairs, unable to bend over without having vertigo that knocks you on your forehead, unable to get down on the floor because you can't get back up, not able to go on walks and enjoy your family or even go shopping because you're in so much pain. That's where it ends up if you don't address with your insulin resistance. So, um, if I knew how to block you, Lee, I would. All right, so let's talk about briefly some of the issues that are going on with insulin resistance. It disrupts your body's ability to regulate blood pressure. Now, I talked about 5 ways that that happens in depth the other day, so go find that video and listen to that. I'm also posting up short videos about it, but it changes the thickness of your blood vessel walls. It changes the ability for your body to produce nitric oxide, which allows them to relax. It increases your cortisol strength, tightening up your blood vessels even more. It increases this type B LDL that's causing that plaque buildup. And I'm missing one. Oh, yes, it's affecting your kidneys and the ability for them to get rid of salt and water from your system. Now you have inflammation, and that excess water in your bloodstream is causing more heart problems, all from insulin resistance. But now, when we take a look at that, that's the number one thing I talk about. 95% of people with hypertension have some form of insulin resistance. It's the biggest cause of hypertension. If you have a high blood pressure, you better get your insulin resistance checked, okay? But all of that also means down the line, there's other problems with heart disease. So you could have this inflammation and damage to your blood vessels that leads to atherosclerosis. And I can go over that on another talk. But that's plaque buildup in your arteries. I want to tell you that plaque buildup isn't from your dietary fats, it's from sugar. Just know that. Just know that sugar is causing that plaque buildup. It's not the saturated fats that you've been told they actually can help you. The sugars are causing that plaque buildup. Dietary fats do not translate to fats in your bloodstream, okay, in this damaging way. Dietary fats are not causing it, sugars are. So the elevated insulin levels also contribute to dyslipidemia, this change where your low density lipoproteins are not imbalanced. There's different kinds of low LDL, and insulin resistance changes that ratio and starts to cause problems. And that can be characterized by high triglycerides and low HDL. So I gave you, if you're on TikTok, there's a tab called How to Tell, and there's a calculation in there how to look at your triglycerides and your HDL to tell if you're insulin resistant. So if you have that question, go find that video. It's in the tab, do the score, and then come back and let me know. I'm not going to go over it right now, unless you guys want me to at the end of this. All right. So chronic inflammation accelerates the progression of heart disease. It can weaken your heart and thin it and make it not pump right. There's all kinds of problems that can happen with your heart, and it remains the number one cause of death worldwide. And insulin resistance is one of its silent drivers and one of the ones that's never really dealt with. So it's so impactful that the American Heart Association recognizes insulin resistance as a significant risk factor for cardiovascular disease. The American Heart Association recognizes insulin resistance as a significant risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Let that sink in for a second. Know somebody with heart problems, know somebody with hypertension. Let's come back. I want to say hypertension. What is hypertension for those that you don't know? High blood pressure. High blood pressure is if you have a reading, that top number is your systolic number, 130 on that top number, over 80 on the bottom number, or higher is high blood pressure. The link is insulin resistance. It's only going to get worse if you don't address your insulin resistance. I know. Personally, I know. Okay. So I've had it happen to me. One of the other things is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This one is so impactful that fatty liver disease used to only be considered to be in alcoholics. But now, would you be surprised to know that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is taking over this fatty liver disease more than alcoholics? And it's so bad that we're seeing it in kids as young as 6 years old. And here's what's happening. With insulin resistance, it's forcing the liver to store excess glucose or as fat. Remember, your fat in your body is coming from glucose. So your liver is storing excess glucose as fat. and that leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It changes how, and by the way, your liver stores those glucose molecules as little bundles of molecules, and then it breaks it down for later use, but it's storing way too much. And that excess storage of fat glucose molecules bound together is causing damage in your liver. Over time, that fat accumulation can cause liver inflammation or non-alcoholic steatohepatosis, or NASH, NASH. I can't even say anything right now. Or scarring, fibrosis, and even liver failure. So, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease affects up to 25% of adults globally and is no longer strongly linked to alcoholism alone. It's strongly linked to insulin resistance. Remember, alcoholism creates some insulin resistance as well. So, in another study, insulin resistance is considered to be the central mechanism behind NAFLD, making it a key therapeutic target, and that one's by Samuel and Schulman. So there's a lot of research about insulin resistance causing this fatty liver that we used to only attribute to alcoholics. And it's important. It's important. Your liver is extremely important to you. If you know anybody with liver damage, ask them how their life goes when they've had liver damage. By the way, when you're damaging your liver, you're also damaging your gallbladder. Okay? So a damaged liver increases the likelihood that you're going to end up with gallstones and eventually being told that you need to have your gallbladder removed. You want to take care of your liver, cut back on the sugar. You've got to. Okay? So neuropathy and nerve damage, insulin resistance. It's chronically high blood sugar level damages your small blood vessels, okay? And they supply the nerves. But now there's other issues within the nerves. I've talked about that yesterday on the brain, because those nerves are not just, the neuropathy is not just happening in your brain, it's happening body wide, but it's damaging your small blood vessels. They can't supply the nerves. The nerves are taking on damage. The glycation that we talked about earlier also damages nerve fibers and impairs their function. And over time, all of this creates that tingling, numbness, and pain in your extremities that you can't seem to get rid of. Tired of buying diabetic foot socks and all of that and not being able to stand on your feet without extreme pain? It's sugar causing all this damage. Okay. So again, another study, they suggest that managing insulin resistance early can prevent or delay the onset of diabetic neuropathy. Now I'm going to take a sidebar on this one. I want to talk to you about something. I used to work in a infectious disease clinic. I watched a young man, his late 20s, early 30s, came in, first lost his feet due to diabetic neuropathy. Okay. Then, so we saw him in the infectious disease clinic because we're pumping him full of IVs to help stave off any infection. We thought we got it controlled, send him home. Nobody was dealing with his diabetes. He knew he had diabetes. Nobody was strong enough in talking to him about his sugar intake or how to address it, other than the things that the physicians want to give you. And so then slowly, like, another portion of his leg is taken. Pretty soon his legs were shortened beyond up above his kneecaps. And then they were shortened even further. And then finally, the last time we saw him, his entire legs had been removed up to his groin, because he wasn't ever told about insulin resistance and how simple this can be to address. That's my opinion. Do you know I never saw him again after that? Because he passed away from that. So all of this, yes, it's life-threatening. And yes, you should be paying attention before you ever get to that stage. Okay. So now we'll talk about chronic inflammation and oxidative stress. Insulin resistance creates a pro-inflammatory state, activating pathways like NFKB. Now that pathway drives inflammation throughout the body. So the production of those AGEs that we talked about, advanced glycation end products, generates free radicals, leading to oxidative stress, which further damages cells and tissues. And remember, AGEs, One of the biggest ways that it's happening is excess sugar in the bloodstream. Now, what's happening is that chronic inflammation and oxidative stress contribute to conditions like arthritis, and yes, it can contribute to both rheumatoid and osteoarthritis, cognitive decline or Alzheimer's, type 3 diabetes, and autoimmune diseases. That excess inflammation, autoimmune specialists are talking about how inflammation is the root cause of all autoimmune disease. And it can be starting right here with insulin resistance. You need to understand that. So, insulin resistance is now being investigated. This was 2008. There's even more studies about it now, but it's being investigated as a contributing factor to neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. They now don't just sometimes call it type 3 diabetes. They almost always call it type 3 diabetes because there is such a link now between insulin resistance and Alzheimer's. Dementia. Alzheimer's is the leading form of dementia. Your brain not being able to get the energy it needs and causing nerve damage in the brain. Insulin resistance. Insulin resistance starts all of this. So let's have another analogy. So I want you, observer, alcohol is basically liquid sugar. So I want you to think about insulin resistance like this. It's a ticking time bomb in your body. You might feel fine for years, just like I did, but the damage is happening behind the scenes, and it doesn't have to be because you can diffuse it, and that's what I learned to do. I had this ticking time bomb that was going off, and no physician was addressing it. And I found this protocol we're going to talk about, and that protocol diffused it and started helping me heal from all that damage. So addressing insulin resistance early can stop this chain reaction. I have 3 joint replacements. I don't want that for you. Every one of those joint replacements was likely to have been unnecessary had anyone talked to me about insulin resistance and the deficiencies of our food environment today. Okay. And addressing your insulin resistance can actually reverse many of the conditions that are linked to it. And even if it's not a condition that's created by insulin resistance has been shown to exacerbate things like psoriasis, crazy, autism. A number of other issues that we can have are linked to how badly they appear in people and insulin resistance. So, ignoring your insulin resistance isn't just risky for you, it's dangerous. And if you care about your life, if you care about the family that's around you, you have to understand this ticking time bomb you're playing with and understand that you have to address insulin resistance. It's not an option. It's not if I take care of it, I might feel a little better. No, this is your life. How many loved ones count on you? And why are you putting it off? So, the earlier you address it, the better your chance of reclaiming your health and vitality. I talked the other day about for every 10 years somebody has insulin resistance, their brain looks 2 years older than somebody the same age who doesn't have it. I'm going to talk to you about that just about now, okay? So we're going to talk about it right now, actually. So if you could stop that reaction from happening before it starts, or reverse the damage that's already done, or just start to address it so you don't have continued damage, how much would that be to you? Okay. How much would that be worth? So the solution I'm going to talk about is going to cost you around $5 a day. It's simple, it's sustainable, and it addresses all of these things that we talked about, or a majority of them, in a way that you can work into your life without having to be some crazy carnivore, keto, vegan, whatever. Okay? Yeah, you can have a cookie after your healthy meal. Yeah, you can have ice cream once in a while. Yeah, you can have pasta sometimes. Yes, you can eat Indian foods. Yes, you can eat Mexican foods. Do you want to do that all the time? No. But can you do it sometimes and still be healthy from all of this? Yes, you can. I didn't go into why this is happening. I went into, like what happens when we become insulin resistant. We'll talk about nutrition sometime in the next few days, but understand that our modern food environment is what's causing it. So Insulin resistance isn't just about what's happening in your body, it's about the food you're fueling it with. Our food is deficient in nutrients, it's deficient in fiber, and our food is highly processed and full of sugar, and that's causing the problem. Okay, even you know what? I started becoming a Nazi at reading labels, and I'm shocked. Some of the foods that I used to eat all the time and thought they were okay, I wouldn't touch now because I realize how toxic they are. I don't expect you to read all the labels. Just try to do better. Okay. You don't have to go full carnivore. You don't have to go full vegan. You don't have to do any of that crazy stuff. Understand that the food that you're getting is imperfect and we need to just fill those gaps so that all this stuff that we just spent the last 45 minutes talking about doesn't happen to you. And for me, it was a protocol I found right here on social media. That's just 2 drinks I have during the day, and this is what it does. Okay. The protocol does this. I have a pre-meal drink that helps, and I have a tea, and they both help me with balancing that blood sugar. They both help me with how much of that blood sugar is actually hitting my bloodstream. Oh yeah, we have problems with big pharma, so I am careful about what I say because I have to make sure that what I say is based by all this research, so I don't ever get shut down. Okay, so the first step to addressing your insulin resistance really is about blood sugar levels, and that's where this protocol plays a crucial role because it's designed to work with your body by supporting your healthy blood sugar levels naturally without all those drastic diets or deprivation. So the pre-meal drink we have slows the absorption of sugars, reducing blood sugar spikes after meals by up to 40%. And it also helps with satiety. So you're not constantly battling hunger. You're not eating as much during your meals. And your body's capable of dealing with the sugars that you just put in it more naturally. No more blood sugar spikes. No more insulin spikes. I mean, I'm not going to tell you you can have pancakes and cereal and orange juice for breakfast and not expect this blood sugar spike, right? But you're going to reduce those blood sugar spikes by up to 40%, which is huge. It can reduce an insulin spike by up to like 27, 30%. It's huge. That's the root cause. That's the place where we need to start. So we only not only have that pre-meal drink that's rich in 7 different types of fiber that are specifically in there for this absorption of glucose slowdown, but the tea that I drink supports your energy, reduces your craving, helps you with that blood sugar, helps you in managing your insulin sensitivity, and also dramatically increases your appetite regulation both in your brain and in your gut. Now, um, studies have shown that increasing GLP-1, that thing that's in the injectables, those hormones that everybody's injecting once a week, that hormone, GLP-1, is critical for managing insulin sensitivity and appetite regulation. I can talk about why those are all damaging later. I've done it before, but know this. Do you want something that's naturally occurring in your body, or do you want something that's forcing your body to keep those pathways open and then becoming numb to the signals later on? I would rather have the natural pathway than damaging my pathways further. So, the tea that I drink increases your GLP-1 levels up to 70% naturally. Okay, so it's what I sip on all day. It's what I drink on all day. I mix 2 of them because I'm drinking 2 a day. I mix 2 of them in this big 40-ounce mug and I just sip on it. This is actually my second mug today. So it's just tea, stevia, and some flavor because it comes in lemon ginger, or apple spice. That's it. But it can increase your GLP-1 70%. Now, the difference with this drink is also that it's 375 times stronger than any natural yerba mate on the market. It's also purified. None of the others do that. So think microplastics, think molds, think PAHs, think pesticides and other toxins. We clean it out. The other products don't. Okay. So all the 3 drinks, the pre-meal drink and the 2 tea a day, are about $5 a day. Is your health worth that? Because I was spending more than $5 a day on medications that weren't helping my health. I always go against the grain. So now let's take a look at this. It's also sustainable and simple. It's not like other approaches that require you to make drastic changes, like cutting out entire food groups or counting every calorie. The protocol is designed to fit into your everyday life. You don't have to give up your favorite foods entirely. Instead, you simply add the 2 components to your day, the pre-meal drink that helps stabilize your blood sugar with the meal with the most carbohydrates, and a tea that I start drinking first thing in the morning and sip on throughout the day that supports my mental clarity, reduces cravings, and you don't have to have perfection. You don't need consistency. The system makes it doable. So if you've been struggling with all of these things that are telling you all of the crazy things you have to do, and by the way, berberine is not the answer. It's a component if you want it to be, but it's not the answer. This has been scientifically designed. Yes, science behind it. Studies with Cleveland Clinic, and come on, the University of Sydney and many others have proven its efficiency. It's not like some bagged stuff that somebody goes, "Oh, this is the big thing of the moment. Let's go produce it." We actually have science and we care about how we produce it. Hey, Cindy. Cindy is on the system as well. Cindy, how much weight have you lost now naturally? The last time I counted, it was 160-ish, but I know that it's probably more than that. She had pre-diabetes. Her husband had diabetes. Her health was failing her, and she now is feeling amazing. 133. Sorry, Jason's the one who's lost almost 200 pounds. Cindy's lost 133. I've lost 55 and kept it off. But it's not about the weight loss. Remember, the weight gain is coming because your body's sick. It's about getting your body better, and then the weight loss comes. So this morning I talked about how the system changed my life. I'm not alone. Like Cindy and Jason were on here. They're perfect examples. They probably are more perfect examples than me. Thousands of people just like you have used the protocol to address insulin resistance, lower their A1C, get their weight under control, regain their energy. But for me, it was about finding that something that was sustainable, something that I could do every day and still have those moments where I'm not perfect. I could have a busy life. I could travel. I didn't have to overhaul everything. I didn't have to go eat foods I'm not used to. You don't have to either. You don't have to either. And that's the goal of this. So I want you to think about what your life would look like if you could regain control of your health without feeling like it's impossible or an uphill battle, because most of us are failing because we feel like it's impossible. The solutions that are given to us are either harming us or they're just not sustainable, and it makes us frustrated and feel like we're going to give up. If you had something that made it easier, then would you want to do that? So, Observer, I'm going to put my link in over here. You guys can go to my landing page. All of the information that you're looking at is there. It's this, the protocol is listed there. You're having 2 tea in a day. And by the way, they're packaged like this. So it's easy to pack with you. I can take it on my airplane. I can take it in the car. I can take it anywhere. When I go like to Kings Island and take my grandson for outings, I just put this in my purse and it goes with me everywhere. I just rip it open and put it in a bottle of water. And that's it. I don't have to steep it. I don't have to do any of that stuff. I just drink the tea. Now, Lee says 180 pounds ripped to the bone. That's good for you. I hope that your metabolic health is actually healthy, because I've worked with a lot of, I actually have um, a top female athlete who is actually a bodybuilder. Amazing, amazing. When you looked at her, you would never have guessed that she had diabetes, that her health was struggling, that her doctor had told her if she didn't change something in the next 6 months, she would be critically ill. And she started the system and changed her entire life. Pro bodybuilder, beautiful specimen, still suffering. And that's the key. Everybody, 99% of us have an insulin issue, and this addresses that. Okay, guys, I about talked myself out of a voice today. I'm going to come back later and talk about the opportunity side of this. If you guys want to know more, you don't have to be sciencey like me. Cindy was on here a little bit ago. She's more vibrant and just more communicable than me. You know, she does great. But you can build this any way you want to. And the most important thing is that we're a team. So it takes every personality, but the system not only changed my health, but it changed how I live overall, because it changed me not having to work 2 jobs or working 80 hours a week. I get to come on here and talk to you guys and share information, and I'm a learner. So you think that it hurts me to have to go do research and disseminate all this? I absolutely thrive on it. But you don't have to be that way. You can still build a business, do amazing things, change your life. We'll talk about that later tonight. But reach out to me either way. Change your health, change your wealth. We're here for it. And I want you to succeed no matter what. I hope the information today helped you. If you need more information, if you missed half of this talk and you want to go back and listen to more about insulin resistance, diabetes, and why it's so important, please go to my YouTube channel. It's linked in that link I dropped that's in my profile, and come back and listen to any of the lives I've done with the science or with the stories. And we will see you. If you're not here tonight, we'll see you in the morning, and I'll share more stories. And then tomorrow afternoon, we'll share more science. So have a great day, you guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks for hanging out with me. Love you all. See you later. Observer, berberine or turmeric. Neither one are great on their own. Okay, they have some small action, but they're not the components that you really need. The pre-meal drink that I'm drinking in this packet, I just pour it in a little bit of water and drink it down. It has phytosterols, it has heart healthy components, it has 7 different specific fibers that are they're there to help with blood sugar control. um, Berberine can give a component of that, but it's not giving the broad spectrum. Plus, it's not giving you all of the satiety and other gut health. This is feeding my probiotics in my gut. It's considered a prebiotic. It's increasing my ketones when I drink it. It does so much more than berberine can even touch. Okay. All right. Bye, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See you then.